of the different divisions, and then I also run the internship program. And I'm also responsible for kind of managing a candidate's experience from when we first call them through the job offer, and then even 90 days out from when they started. So trying to make sure that your needs are being taken care of and that you're being onboarded properly.
Hi, I'm Chelsea Scott. I'm the talent recruiter at Refinery 29. So I basically handle everything over there from internships to everything from brand integration to ad sales, PR, marketing, tech, creative, editorial, all of the internships, like I said. And if you don't know what Refinery 29 is, they're basically an online media company where commerce, rich content, and mobile, tablet, custom programs kind of converge, where mostly females, I would say, have a very rich shopping experience. Everything you read about in our editorial is featured and sold on our commerce portion of our site, and we also have some great sponsored partnerships that we have through our brand integration and ad sales for all of our advertisers. So it's a very fun site for women, I would say.
Hi, I'm Abdul Smith. I recruit, I've been recruiting in New York for I guess about 7 or 8 years now. I started out on the technology side and then moved into creative and marketing. I work for a digital marketing agency, Sapient Nitro now. And we're a different type of agency in the sense that a lot of what we do tends to be experience design and digital experiences. So when I talk about Sapient Nitro and what we offer to candidates, we think less about specific platforms or doing things like websites or banner ads, and we're thinking a lot more about how consumers are interacting and engaging with technology, or interacting with brands through technology, and then building out solutions around that. So it's fun stuff. I mean, we've done everything from products like Coke machines, where you can sort of do it's an interactive Coke machine where you can mix flavors, or we build ice cream machines for vendors like Haagen-Dazs, where it has facial recognition technology, and if you smile, it'll drop down an ice cream bar. So it's really, we sit at the intersection of creative and technology. We started out as a technology company that moved into the digital marketing space, and so we're doing a lot of very innovative and sort of next generation things, and so it's a great place to be.
Hi everyone, my name is Janelle. I'm from Combs Enterprises. I do recruiting for Bad Boy Worldwide, which is our record label, Sean John, the clothing line, the Blue Flame Agency, which is the advertising and marketing department, which handles advertising marketing for Ciroc. And I also do recruiting for Vault TV, which is going to be the new TV station that's going to be launched soon. And I also handle the internship program at the company as well.
Great. So I thought I'd start with sort of the beginning of the process. We're really excited today to have all recruiters, right? So really getting a look into the other side of the application process. So I wanted to start with Abdul, because we were just talking about sort of what your company actually uses to handle applicants and the whole process. And I think he gave a really good stat that will be a good kind of kick in the butt for a lot of us. At New York Creative Interns, we really push the importance of having a great online presence, regardless of what industry you might be trying to get into. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about how you use your internal tracking system versus LinkedIn and that sort of thing.
So we have there's two different things. An applicant tracking system is something that, if you apply to a job, your resume gets pushed into our internal applicant tracking system, and that's a place that's, in some agencies or in some jobs, it's a place where recruiters can look for and search for talent. At Sapient Nitro, it's trash. Like I can't search on it unless I know your name. So if you apply for a job and I don't know your name, you're not going to get hired. So I was telling Emily that 95% of my searches are on LinkedIn, and that's been the case for me for the past couple of years. As I'm doing less recruiting at the creative and intern level. We have a separate campus hiring program that's tailored towards that. But when I was at IPG, I did a ton of recruiting for creative, intern, associate level hires, And I was telling Emily that I had a very hard time finding people right out of college or at the graduate, at the undergraduate level who had really robust profiles on LinkedIn. So that's, I would say, is if you're not on LinkedIn and if you're not using it and if you're not making connections, you should start right now. Download the app on your phone. So.
After the session is over. And so, talking about a robust profile, does maybe someone kind of want to talk about maybe what makes a robust profile, what kind of things you want to see, keywords, a certain number of connections, what kind of makes you look at a profile and not be impressed versus being impressed? Does anyone want to touch on that?
Well, I guess I'll just say that, for LinkedIn, it's basically your resume, and I think they actually now have an upgrade where you can actually use your resume and upload it, and somehow they pull your responsibilities. But it should look like your resume, all the responsibilities that you have, but then there's an additional, you can have different skills, and they're pretty, you could just put in a few keywords, and the different types of skills that other people have used will come up. So you can then list those separately on your LinkedIn profile, and then you could also have people endorse you for those skills. So if someone knows that you are particularly good at talent acquisition, they can then endorse me. So do I necessarily look at the different, this person has been endorsed by this many people on this particular skill? Not necessarily, but the more things that you put on there, the more times it'll come up in a search. So the more information that you can put, the better.
And so in terms of, beyond just LinkedIn as well, and beyond, I'm sure we've all heard that spelling mistakes and that sort of thing are obviously huge no-nos, but to get a little deeper into that in terms of resumes, what kind of the bullets, right? Those are kind of the big important parts of the resume. What makes a good bullet? What do you want to see in the description from past experiences?
Just clear, concise information of the things that you've done in other positions. Making sure you're putting the internships that you have, leaving out the maybe jobs that you've had at restaurants or babysitting jobs. And even though you're just starting out there, it's important to show relevant experience on your resume and make sure things are accurate. Spell checked. I don't think you need an objective in a resume. I don't know if anyone disagrees with me, but I just think a nice, clean, well-presented resume. It's funny, I was talking to another recruiter friend of mine who is also a creative recruiter, and she mentioned how a lot of creatives are now making their resumes like infographics. And that's interesting and that's great, but keep it simple. I think with a resume, less is more. It's really about what you can bring to the table. That's most important.
And I think the length of your resume too. I know a lot of times I always see resumes 10 pages long, But being that if it's one, it's just straight to the point, but includes all the details that you need to it's great also.
Yeah, I think especially at an intern or right out of school level, if your resume is longer than one page, you probably need to redo it. It's great if you have experience that spans the globe, but like Chelsea was saying, really relevant, concise, and showing a focus of what you want to do.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about cover letters. So I've heard both sides from recruiters. Some people say they barely look at them. Other people say that's really what they care about. Maybe if anybody has some conflicting views, it'd be interesting to hear that. But also maybe an example of a cover letter that really stood out. Maybe anybody that you wanted to hire just purely off their cover letter and elements of that. And then maybe any cover letters or things about cover letters that make you just immediately pass.
What's a cover letter?
Oh.
I rarely look at cover letters. I think for me, if there's anything that's important that you need to get across, it should be on the resume. I have, in the off chance that I get a resume that I'm sort of on the fence about, I feel like a candidate might be okay. If there's an interesting cover letter attached, then I might, pass them on. So it doesn't hurt to put a cover letter on, but I think it's really key to make sure that anything that's important that you want to get across, that's relevant to your experience or relevant to what you want to do, should be on your resume.
Actually, 100%. I have the exact opposite. And maybe it's just the industry. Yeah, exactly. So book publishing, we're a company of words. So we want to really see how you write, and that can be conveyed in your cover letter. Also, and forgive me for anyone who's not really interested in book publishing, but a book house, especially HarperCollins, a large one like us, we have lots of imprints. Imprints are basically specific brands of book. So in that, if you were, let's say, to apply to an editorial assistant position with our Avon imprint, which is our romance imprint, I want to make sure that you love working and reading romance novels. So one way to show that is to write it in your cover letter. I also love seeing a cover letter when it kind of, I always say that you could use it to address any holes that are in your resume. So if there is a gap, or if you are applying for a job in New York, but your address is in California, you could write in your cover letter, I'm currently living in California, but I'm available for, I'm looking to relocate to the New York area, I'm available to interview immediately, things like that. I think if you just send me a resume, it's just not telling me the whole story, especially when there are things that wouldn't traditionally, if I looked at your resume, I wouldn't think, oh, this person would be perfect for this job. So it really, to me, it shows your passion. It shows that you made a little bit of extra effort, that you did your research on the job and the company, and then also shows your writing style.
A few years ago, I was working at an ad agency, and I really didn't see the purpose of a cover letter, except if it were for any copywriting, junior copywriting jobs. Then I would probably pay a little bit more attention. Now that I'm working in-house at a company like Refinery 29, and I'm working across all of the different departments, I find that cover letters are important for specific things that I'm looking for. So if it's for ad sales, or editorial, or brand integration, you have to be able to convey to me the reason why you want to work for our brand and what sort of a seller you are, or pitching a specific idea, how you pitch it. And then I think that overall now, even if I were to go back into an ad agency setting, that's really, in essence, what it's about, the pitch. Because at the end of the day, that's what you guys are selling. You're selling yourselves. And I think that that's really, regardless of what industry you're looking to get into, it's the basic economics. It's like supply and demand. Here I am, I'm going to sell myself. And I don't think that a cover letter at a junior level can hurt. It can only help. And I think that if you let your personality and your true self shine through, along with some information that you might need if you are not local, and just expressing your passion, I think is important, because a lot of people do have passion. You just have to kind of show us why you're the one for the other.
Right. Follow-up is obviously can be really key, but I think a lot of people wonder, is there sort of a standard time from when a listing goes up and how long does it stay up? Is it pointless to apply for something if you saw it was posted a few months ago, or are you sure that, usually when something's up, that means it still needs to be filled? And then, of course, the whole, how soon is it appropriate to follow up, and how often, and that sort of thing. Just thoughts on that whole following up process.
I don't think it's a problem. I think it's an excellent thing to follow up. I know many times, I was actually had a conversation with my sister not too long ago. She had applied to a position, and she hadn't heard anything, and she thought, automatically, I didn't get it, there's no point in following up. But in some cases, there's, certain instances that, for instance, the job may be put on hold, and, they're going to start recruiting for it, the next couple of weeks or so. So it's good to have keep your name in their ear, just to, show that you're still interested.
There also is a thing called pipelining, where you're building a candidate list to access for freelance opportunities for a specific role. If someone gets sick, or if there's it's not a good thing, but things like a high turnover in a specific position. So you need to kind of pipeline candidates to make sure that you can sort of access people when you need them. I think that as far as internships go, junior roles, certainly don't email every day saying, hey, did you get, my email? But I don't know, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, or, checking in once a month. I think, honestly, if you haven't heard anything back after initially engaging with the recruiter, then perhaps, let it go for a little bit. If they're interested, if we're interested, we will definitely reach out. Should you continue applying? Sure. But I think that having sort of a graceful period of 2 to 3 weeks and then sort of let it go until like another month or so, that I feel like is acceptable.
And what about following up via social media? So is that a turnoff? Is that you see that as kind of being proactive, and that could be tweeting at a certain person that you think if sometimes it's clear who the role is going to be under, or the HR person, it might be obvious, or recruiter, it might be obvious, or tweeting at the company. Is that yay, nay?
Well, I was actually just getting ready to say this, and I'm going to give everybody a pro tip right now. Whenever you apply for, and don't everybody do this tonight, but if you apply for a job, this is where being creative and being active on some of these social channels, especially on LinkedIn, comes into play. Looking up who is on the hiring team or who's on the recruiting team at the place that you're applying to, and just doing something as simple as sending a LinkedIn invite. Hey, I applied for your job today. I mean, there's 100% chance of me looking at your profile if I get a LinkedIn invite, and there's, I'd say, realistically a 30 to 40% chance of me getting to your profile in time before I hire someone else if you just apply through our website or through our careers page, just because of the volume of applicants that we get. So I think a polite introduction on LinkedIn, invitation to connect and saying I applied to your job is definitely helpful.
Any other? Oh, sure. So HarperCollins has a Facebook page, it's Harper Careers. So one of the reasons why we created it was for that kind of very reason of following up. While we wouldn't give necessarily a follow-up to your specific application, what the status of that is, if you say, oh, I saw that this editorial assistant position was taken down, is it filled, is it not, we can kind of give you more of a general idea of where we are in the recruitment process. In going to your question about like how long a job is posted for, I really try to take down a job from the job sites when we have enough resumes. For example, last week I had an editorial assistant position. I posted it, and then the next day I think I took it down because we had well over just 100 resumes, but a lot of them were really wonderful, and why waste your time applying for a job when we have plenty of people? I never want to do that. That being said, there are certainly times where it's posted maybe a lot of different places, and a recruiter kind of loses track of where it is, and it might be up, and then see it later on, oh my gosh, it's been up for a month, and we're well past recruiting for it. So yes, you can definitely follow up. You might get a no, I can't give you the specific status of your application, but maybe they'll give you a general idea. It doesn't hurt to ask.
Somebody gets called in for the interview, so they're in, they have their foot in the door. We've been told that one of the great things that you can do is have good questions prepared for the interview process to ask at the end. Usually most people will say, do you have any questions for us? What makes a good question in that regards for the interview?
A lot of times people come in and they'll have the standard, interview questions, and I kind of, know that by now. So someone who comes in with, just excellent questions directly related to the position.
And I think research helps too. I mean, in my space, we're a digital agency. We are, if you're applying to an agency, I'm sure they're in the news. I'm sure some of their work is in the news. So if you are coming in for an interview, just doing research on what we've done. Hey, I heard you guys acquired Second Story. How do you guys plan on integrating or working with them? Or I read about you guys on one of the 10 agencies to watch. How's that changed the mood here? Or just doing research on any sort of recent news or recent things that the agency's done, and then just making a reference to it is, at least shows that you're, at this, at an intern level or at a couple years out of school. I think one of the things that our hiring managers look for more than a one-to-one translation of experience and can they do the job is, are they resourceful? Are they, you know, passionate about the work that we're doing? And have they done their research? Do they know who we are? And do they, you know, are they excited about the space that we're in? And do they want to be in it too and be along for the ride?
Sure. So, I mean, human resources is kind of a general catch-all for a lot of different things. And I think different companies, depending on its size, will have different things for HR. So if it's a small company, it's probably going to be an HR generalist who does a little bit of everything. But then when the larger the company is, a lot of times the HR functions are separated out. So one person would handle compensation, or one person would handle benefits, or training and development, or employee relations. Recruiting would just be another one of those functions. So that's kind of in a corporate setting. I don't know if anyone wants to talk in more of an agency setting, but.
In an agency setting is pretty much the same depending on the size again, but for the most part, you know, things are, you know, segmented out. For myself, when I was at an agency, I was a recruiter, but I did not sit in HR. I sat in the creative group, in the creative department. But yeah, for the most part, things are definitely spread out. At Refinery 29, there's one HR person that handles everything. I sit within HR, but I'm the recruiter. So they're sort of two different things. They, you know, handle employee relations, culture, benefits, everything, compensation, onboarding, all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's the same for us. So.
So has anybody been to a group interview ever? Or how about you went to an interview and you met with more than one person? Right, so those are usually very scary, more so than a normal interview. So maybe tips on, you know, so those two separate things. So the group interview where you're, and actually there's two different types of group interviews, right? So maybe you're being interviewed by multiple people, or there's multiple people interviewing at once, which happens sometime. And then also, you know, when you're interviewing with different people, maybe in the same day, you know, do you feel like it's good to kind of say the same things, or are people expecting to hear different things? But any sort of tips on those different types of interview situations?
One piece of advice I give everybody that's interviewing, and this is, you know, from my mother to the people that I bring in, is that it's, you know, I know that there's this, you know, sort of stigma around the process of interviewing, and it makes a lot of people's palms sweaty, and it makes you get really nervous, but I think the best way to look at an interview is really just a conversation. And I think it's important that you make sure that it's a two-way conversation so that you're not being probed for, you know, whether it's 30 minutes or half an hour. It's not just, you know, what can you do for us, but it's also, you know, what can your company do for me, and it's an opportunity for you to talk about the things that you're passionate about. I mean, if you've gotten to the interview stage, the things that you're passionate about probably align with what the agency's looking for. So this is the chance for you to really be able to just sort of talk about those things and kind of get your ideas across about where you see yourself fitting in and find out what they think about you too. So I'd like to kind of take the stigma of, you know, the interview as being this, am I going to be chosen, off the table, and make it, is this the right choice for me?
And just have copies of your resume.
Yeah, and that's it.
Any tips for phone interviews or Skype interviews?
Well, I guess for phone interviews, I mean, for myself, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll reach out to someone and just kind of do a really quick phone screen, just asking a little bit about, you know, why did you decide to apply for the position? You know, tell me a little bit about your background. I mean, it's a really quick thing, but the first thing that I say when I call and someone picks up is this a bad time? So if you're caught off guard and you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is, I don't know what job this is, I'm freaking out, it is completely fine to say, you know what, this is not a good time, may I take your number, can I give you a call back, when is a good time to reach you? And then compose yourself, look up the job that you applied for, look a little bit about the company, and then you know, give us a call back. There's no shame in doing that. It's better to do it that way than to, I've had people say, what job are you, what company are you, what is this again? And like, oh, you really, you know, just take a moment and do your research. I'll just echo that research is so important. It's to me, it makes people stand out above everybody else, and so many people do not do their research. If you can't name a HarperCollins book when you come into interview, you're not really going to get any further than that. So it's almost as simple as that.
Also, don't do a Skype interview in your pajamas.
Yeah.
Don't do it with your dog barking in the background. Make sure you're in a space that's quiet. Make sure that you're fully focused and fully dressed.
Any other tips on sort of unique, different interviewing experiences and that sort of thing? Okay, so the interview has ended. I think it went well. So in terms of follow-up, I know we talked a little bit about that already, but for follow-up after the interview, anything different to add for that? Have you gotten handwritten cards? Does that freak you out? Does that impress you? And then one question I think a lot of people have too is it okay if you don't get the job and you've been told that you didn't get the job to ask what you could have done better? Does it depend on how big the company is and that sort of thing?
I always love to have something that's been handcrafted, hand-delivered, whether it's a thank you a few days later. But even if you're going to do that, I think it's very important to make sure that you do send a thank you via email to the people that you've met, to myself if you met with me. Even a Skype call or a phone screen, I don't think it has to be something so detailed, but just thanking me or whomever I set the call up with for you, just thanking us for our time and looking forward to hearing back. I think that's very important. Some sort of a follow-up afterward. Not following up kind of shows how you would be in a position. So, and following up is a skill that you're going to have no matter where you go, what industry. So that's very important.
I've had several situations where we had a top candidate, we met with a bunch of people, had a top candidate, that person did not send a thank you note, and we didn't offer the job to them. Or they sent a thank you note or a thank you email and it was one sentence. Or they sent a thank you email and there was a typo in it and we didn't offer the job. And you may say, well, in this day and age, everything's on the computer or my phone or, I sent it via, it doesn't matter because the people who are making the hiring decisions, who are hiring you, aren't coming from that generation a lot of times. So a traditional thank you note is really great, but an email is completely acceptable. But write in it a little bit about what you learned that day, make it personal. People really, if a well thought out thank you note can really impress people. So you think maybe you bombed the interview or you're not really sure, there's still another step. There's still another way to show that you are really interested in this job and you're the right person for it. Make people remember you.
And going back to the idea that this is a two-way conversation, like it's definitely fine to ask if you didn't get the job, what you could have done differently or what the feedback was. And a caveat is if you're dealing with hiring or you're dealing with HR, ask the HR manager. Don't include that in your email to the hiring manager or to the people that you've met. But whether you're dealing with your recruiter or an HR representative, it's completely acceptable to ask what the feedback is. And the onus is really on us to make sure that everybody has a great candidate experience, whether we hire them or whether we don't. So this feedback can obviously help you as you go forward in your search.
Great.
I think it's definitely acceptable too. I had a story where an intern came in for an interview and they didn't have any knowledge of the company, nothing. So she called me up and said, why did I get the position? And I just told her, I need to do a little bit more research on the company. It's like, come back to me next semester and I'll, bring you in again. I brought her in next semester. She had all the information. She was great, and she turned out to be like one of the best interns I've ever had. So
it's great. So I have a few more questions, but I want to open it up to the audience now, make sure we get all of your questions in. So if you want to raise your hand, and then when you make the question, if you want to just stand up and introduce yourself and speak nice and loud so we can hear you.
Hi, I'm Jill McLennan. I work at Sotheby's auction house right now, and I'm trying to climb my way up the ladder to become a specialist. So I actually had an interview today, and I was wondering, for the thank you note, how long should it be? Is it a similar length to a cover letter, or should it really be thanking them and then a little tiny bit about something you may not have said?
I would say something maybe like 2 short paragraphs, thanking them, and then just bringing up something maybe that they had mentioned in the interview. Like, I really appreciated that you, even if it's something personal, like if they just had mentioned that they were leaving later on to go to their kid's recital, just, oh, the recital went well, just to show, oh, well, I talked to her about the recital, and, oh, okay, I remember this person, and this person was listening to me. But then also maybe just adding something about, again, if there was something that you forgot to mention that you probably should have, or just to kind of reiterate your interest in the position. It doesn't need to be as long as a cover letter, I think.
I said, email us your resume. Do you want us just to say, here's my resume, thank you? Or do you want us to write like a little bit of something?
Great question. Yeah, and I think actually that's kind of a bigger question is, right, like is your cover letter in the body? Is your cover letter attached as a PDF? I mean, I know some applications can get very specific with that, but a lot don't. So any kind of standards or things that you guys think about?
I think we're looking for people to take that extra step. So if it says email us your resume, I think we're looking for, yeah, we do want the resume, but 9 times out of 10, the person who says, I'm Mark, and I'm, really interested in your company, and I understand, I looked at the, sort of digital retail connection that Seek and Nitro's doing, and it aligns very much with, my studies at NYU, and I'm very interested in the position there, then that person's more likely to get a call back from me than somebody who just sends me the resume. Unless, if it's, and we're creatives, if your work is just that amazing and mind-blowing, and you just send me a link to your work and it knocks me off my socks, I'm going to call you too. So, but I think, you really want to take the extra step. I mean, I think that if you're looking for jobs, you have to always also consider that you're just up against, if you're emailing me your resume, like there's probably 10,000 people that are emailing that resume, and you want to set yourself apart. So 9,000 resumes of just an email and 1,000 with a paragraph in an email, I'm going to probably look at 1,000 first.
Hello, I'm Samantha, also for a creative job now. Kind of 2 questions. One of them, which I've had some disagreements with people about. One is, if you don't necessarily have a position open and someone decides to send you their resume, just letting you know that they're interested, does it stand out to you if they send it through the mail or email? Because I have been told, one way, you just get a ton of emails now, spam emails. Do you even bother opening an email like that? If you get something in the mail, do you tear it up, or do you open something that looks like it might be, if it's packaged right, important? And the other half of that question is, cover letters, yeah. With cover letters, a few of you said that they were very important. I know there's something to being concise, but I kind of agree with the cover letter being an opportunity to express yourself and your passions beyond what your resume, like my resume is very arts-based, doesn't necessarily fall into any positions that I want to apply for now. Do you appreciate a resume that is a bit longer and a little more descriptive, or do you prefer to read through? Will you just skim it if it seems too long just by looking at it? Sorry, I know that was a lot.
Well, so your first question, the first was, how do you feel about resumes that are, or basically applications that are emailed to you regardless of whether there's an opening, and also if you were to get a resume in the snail mail format, is that interesting to you? Do you not look at them? And then, so let's do that first.
I would get everything that comes in, whether it's email or through the mail. I think any way that you can get our attention is worthwhile. Separating yourself from the rest of the applicants. As far as what was the email or cover letter?
Well, and then cover letter if it's.
Yeah, I think it should just be clear and concise. I don't think it needs to be too lengthy, and I know it's difficult sometimes when your resume isn't so really it doesn't align really with a lot of the jobs that you're applying for, and you need to be a little bit descriptive. I would still say to try to edit the resume down, to make it as clear and concise as you can, same as the cover letter.
On the question about mail, I like what you said about if it's packaged nicely, because if you just send me a resume in the mail in an envelope, I'm going to say this person could have emailed me this. So yeah, to set yourself apart if you're going to do something really nice and put it in a package. Even at a digital agency, we would, we look for designers. We look for people who are design junkies at heart. So that's definitely a good idea.
I have a great story. When I was working at Penguin, I received a package in the mail, and it wasn't just an envelope, it was a package. I'm like, okay, this is a little weird. I open it, and it's a children's shoe. And on the shoe, there was a tag that said, I just want to get my foot in the door. So now, here's the thing, okay? As a recruiter, or as a hiring manager, we're human. We all have, we all have interests, we all have hobbies, we are people. So what I might love, someone else might hate. So I actually, this particular position, we had just, we were about to offer the job, so we weren't really accepting resumes anymore anyway. That being said, I showed it to the hiring manager and to a few other people in the department, and it was very mixed. It was like, the one person was like, I'm really freaked out. Where did they get it? Where's the other shoe? Did they steal it from the child? Other people were like, that is awesome. It's so creative. It was for marketing jobs, and they were really interested. So it certainly got my attention, and this was years ago, and I'm telling you the story to this day. That being said, the person didn't get called just because the job was already filled. When you send a paper resume, if it's good, it's definitely, it's good. It's just that I can't share it easily with a hiring manager. So a lot of things now are done digitally. We also have an applicant tracking system. And so I like something that's easily shared. I can then just send it to the hiring manager. In answer to the question about whether the cover letter should be in the body of the email or an attachment, I will say if you can do it both ways. When I was at Penguin, you would just email your resume, and it's just easier to search. I could put in keywords in the resume, the cover letter info would come up. That being said, I can then share the cover letter as an attachment more easily with a hiring manager. So,
I have a similar story as well. We were hiring, just happened a few days ago, we were hiring for a videographer, and we knew pretty much who we were going to hire. And I got an email with someone, it looked like it was a reel, and I took a look at it, and it was an applicant pitching herself on why she wanted to work at Refinery 29. And we offered her that position today, actually. So I think it's really about what sort of position you're looking at, and how you can be creative in pitching yourself. Again, I feel like it goes back to the pitch.
As creative people, we all take different paths with our education and just discovering what we want to do and what we want to pursue. And I'm wondering how you look at candidates who are really interested in a given position, but they're maybe lacking certain technical skills or computer programs or other specifications that were not part of their background in the past, but they're actively trying to pursue as they seek a new, a new path in their career. Does it make sense?
Because I have these days it does kind of depend on where you went to school, what you studied, especially for these technology jobs. So I think if you can leverage some of those classes at General Assembly or other smaller places where they're offering these one-off sort of classes, that's also beneficial too.
Can I have a supplement to that question? So how would you look at somebody, would you prefer somebody to take classes at a institution, at a university or something? Or is saying that you've actually studied this on your own and you've produced a portfolio to demonstrate that you've mastered those skills, but it was they were required on your own time versus...
I think it depends on a little bit of both. You've got to come in and be able to hit the ground running. It really is it's about results and how quickly you can produce those results.
Yeah, it's really competitive, and you have to, I think you do have to take into account that you're, competing for the same jobs against people who have that skill set, and so you also have to have the same sort of drive that they originally had to get there to add those skill sets to what you do. So whether it's, spending late nights and weekends sort of honing your craft as creatives, I think creatives should always be tinkering and honing their crafts anyway. So, whether that means forfeiting, the parties on the weekends or whatever it is, you have to try probably doubly as hard as somebody who, went to school for that and has that training. But I think the thing is, if you want it bad enough, it's certainly, the opportunities are there, but you just have to really show the drive.
I would say, like, if you're self-taught in those technical skills, depending on the position that you're applying for, if it's something that you can create a portfolio on and link to that on your application, I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of places look for different things, but if you're a whiz and you just taught yourself, and so you don't have that degree on your resume, but we see what you've done and it's amazing, well, then we would certainly consider you. So I think building a portfolio, it really depends on like the type of position you're applying for. But I always say to like interns or people who are interested in doing, like, say, cover design for book publishing, if you haven't done an internship or you haven't worked in book publishing, but you're a great designer, for funsies, just create a few different covers of books and put it on an online portfolio. Show us your own interpretation of a book that already exists, and then we'll see your design style.
And I think you make a very, very important point. Please don't make us search for your online portfolio. Your link to your online portfolio should be on your resume, and it should be in your signature. It should be all over. It should be on your LinkedIn profile. It should never be secret unless you've actually had the opportunity to intern at an agency or a company where you are working on something that is not produced. In that case, you post your link to your portfolio, make it password protected, and then offer any sort of password so that you can get in. Or you explain that the situation and you present that work that's not produced in a personal, in-person interview. But always allow us access to see your work. Otherwise, I know for myself, if I have to hunt around and it takes me more than 2 minutes, I'm on to the next person.
I've got this like existential sort of question I always run in my head, where it's like, if you say you're an interactive art director and your link is not on your resume, are you really an interactive art director? And I just think it's common sense, but you would be surprised at the amount of resumes that probably all of us get that don't have links to relevant experience or relevant work on their resumes.
Do you have a question now?
Oh,
You did. Any more?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. This is, I'm Emily. I'm graduating May, so I'm looking for a job as well as a last-minute internship. This question is kind of for Janelle. At a company like Bad Boy, where there's so many different sectors, if someone is applying for, say, an internship, do you find it better for them to specify, or like, is it better when they know exactly where they want to work, or do you see that if they don't know, do you see that as indecisive or more willing to work in any different sector or in any kind of industry within the company?
I kind of look at that depending on where they are in their schooling. If they're like a freshman, I kind of, and they're undecided, I kind of get that. If they're like a junior and they're still not kind of ready, I mean, not to say that, because there's adults who still kind of don't know what they want to do. But I do like for them to kind of know where they want to be placed. That's, the best thing. But if they don't, I'm more than willing to kind of like sit down with them and try to figure that out if they feel they are a good candidate and a good match for the company.
Hi, I'm Sharita. So I have a question for you all in regards to like the importance of years of experience. Like a position may say, 4 to 5 years of experience, maybe you have 3 years of experience. So it's good to still apply. And also, have you guys accepted an applicant who maybe didn't have all the qualifications, but they were still strong? Like maybe, there was one thing that they didn't have, but you still decided to hire them without them having that experience.
And we'll just have, and just so we can get, I know there's a lot of questions, just if one person wants to answer each one so we can get to multiple questions.
I feel like so many times I've interviewed people and there are a list of qualifications, but at the end of the day, a lot of the time it is about a culture fit. There are cases where if you are going in and you need to know JavaScript, obviously you have to know JavaScript. If you are a writer and your focus is romance novels, then you need to have that in your background. Have I hired people with 2 years of experience when the job description clearly said 4? Yes. Have people come in and completely knocked my socks off, and when they walked in, they shined, they smiled, they sold themselves, they had great personality, and they were a culture fit. Yes. Culture, you'll hear a lot of that. It is a lot of hiring is about culture. So again, that's what it means to sort of read up on the company. That's what it's about, doing your research. It's not just about being qualified and having the skill set for the job. It's also being able to fit within that company as a culture, because that's what we do. We hire for culture and we build culture. So I hope that helped.
So my name is Kelsey, and I'm so happy that you said that. My startup is Worksite, and we are basically the Match.com for recruiting. So we focus on making cultural fit easier for you guys. So just out of curiosity, I'm wondering how you guys assess cultural fit, and if that depends on the hiring manager, if that's done in the interview, and just typically, how do you guys assess cultural fit?
A lot of times for me, it's kind of a gut thing. I just know that this person would feel comfortable in our company. That being said, a lot of it is also within the department. So even a department might have its own little subculture going on. So ultimately, it's the hiring manager's decision. My job is to weed through all of the applications, meet with people, make sure that they meet the qualifications, and maybe like basic cultural, and then move them on to the hiring manager, and they ultimately make the decision. But one of the questions that I do ask is, what is your ideal work environment? Do you prefer something more team-oriented? Do you prefer working on your own? What is your ideal supervisor? Is it someone who's going to be checking in with you and kind of acting as a mentor, or do you not want a micromanager? Because if you say, I don't want a micromanager, and I know this hiring manager is a micromanager, and you fit the bill on every other thing, I might not refer you, because honestly, you're not going to be happy in this job. You're going to leave within 3 months. So what's the point? So a lot of times when people ask at the end of an interview, you know, why didn't I get the job? Sometimes it's kind of hard to answer. Sometimes you did everything right. It's just you weren't a good fit for that particular job, for that particular hiring manager, or possibly for the company. So sometimes it's kind of a difficult question to answer.
We'll take one more question, and then again, don't worry, because they'll all hang out a little bit, so you'll get to talk to them one-on-one. You had your hand up for a while. So.
Yes, my name is Mish. I'm an HR associate at a nonprofit agency. We don't have an applicant tracking system, so I was wondering what are some tips to get your resume through the applicant tracking system? What does the applicant tracking system look on your end?
Sure. So maybe someone that has, I know you said you use LinkedIn. Do any of you have more of a robust applicant tracking system?
Unfortunately, we use fortunately and unfortunately, there are a lot of different applicant tracking systems out there. There's one that we particularly use called Smart Recruiters that's actually free. A lot of the applicant tracking systems are expensive. At some of the other jobs, I never had an applicant tracking system, and it drove me absolutely crazy. I'm someone who is I have to be organized in every aspect of recruiting. While I use LinkedIn extensively, it's not my database. I have used LinkedIn as my database, but I need I record conversations and emails, and I like to be able to have things right there. JobVite is a great applicant tracking system. Resumator is a great applicant tracking system. But if it's sort of a money situation, a non-for-profit, I'm guessing that might be an issue. Check out Smart Recruiters. You're welcome. As opposed to using Excel spreadsheets like I used to.
Awesome. So, like I said, we're gonna break for mixing and that sort of thing. We'd love if you guys could fill out our super quick survey.